Hey guys, welcome back to another viewer question. And this one it ties into a bunch of different topics, but let's jump into it. It's from Coptic Voice. And he writes, I have a question. I am from Sacramento. I separated February 18th. First hearing, got the kids 20%, which is normal, unfortunately. As kids were still adjusting to the new life. Last week hearing, it went up to 45%. Congratulations on that. I got 3 nights. Judge ordered co-parenting classes and counseling, then another mediation and hearing in April. Everything is going great with the kids, but I'm worried that the mediator might reduce my time, might just be anxiety. How likely farther time reduced after being increased? Thank you. Okay. So first things first, I want to say I'm not an attorney, so consult your attorney if you need legal advice. So these are just going to be my thoughts and opinions on it, and basically dealing with the emotional side of this equation. Okay, so the first thing what I would say is it really appears that, even though there's still and it sometimes does happen, there's the opinion, especially for people starting out in the divorce process, that the system is stacked against men, and if you have the dangly, you're going to get hosed, right? I'm sure you've heard that. I'm sure anyone listening to this has heard that, and I'm here to tell you that that's not really the case. And there are a lot of women on this channel who have not done so well. The thing is that the court system really, the family court system is really biased towards the narcissistic personality type. And the real reason that is because they don't play by the rules. They do whatever they want, meaning your narcissistic, toxic ex. And as a result of that, you get blindsided and they get a huge advantage. The fact that now the 20% that you were talking about in your comment sucks, right? That's tough. But I think in the situation, like in my situation, that's kind of where I was at. We went into our first hearing, and I had 20%, and the judge increased it to, I think, 35% or 30%. Effectively, I got, initially in my situation, it was, the kids can't go to school from my house. They can only visit me, whatever. That type of crap coming from the ex. Bottom line is what I'm saying is that most courts are really trying to find that equilibrium to get to 50-50, right? Everyone realizes that the kids need both parents now. They're starting to realize it. So that, I think, is probably what's happening in your situation. To go from 20% and then, so for your temporary orders, just to establish everything, and then to get it increased to 45%. So what the court's doing, or what the judge is doing, is he's basically testing the waters, right? It's like, okay, because more than likely what's happened is your ex says you're an absentee father, you're not involved, you've never been interested in the kids, you're only interested in the kids now that it's going to cost you money, right? That's the stereotypical answer. And this message goes for everybody. So think about this. If you're on the other side of it and you're playing that role as the person with the majority custody, I'll just say that. Just know that the best case scenario you're going to get on this is a slow increase. Now, if you're really, really worried and you're like, hey, Billy has never shown an interest, never been interested in the kids, and has no ability to take care of himself or the kids. Okay, right? And that's what happened with me. That was the whole thing. And that's what the judge said in my situation. It was like, okay, we have a dad who wants to be involved. So, all right, we're going to give him some more time to see if you can handle it. Because in my situation, the attorney, my ex's attorney, and my ex was basically saying that I didn't care about the kids. This was only about money. I never cared about the kids. I was never involved in anything. I was just a piece of crap that, was a paycheck. And that's what I should still be relegated to going forward. Anyways, so here's the thing. The likelihood that your time is going to be reduced, barring you making some type of critical mistake, is pretty low. Now, if you do something bad, you neglect the kids, or somehow you get caught up in a trap and you do something negative, yeah, sure, that could result in a a reduction or a recommended reduction. A mediated hearing, you're not going through a custody evaluation. Let's see. So you're worried that the mediator would reduce your time. A mediator cannot and make an order. All a mediator is going to do is going to sit down with Mr. and Mrs. X and say, okay, what do you guys want? So this is the way it would play out. The only way your time would be reduced by a mediator is if you both agree that, this 45%, this 45%, it's not really working. 33% would actually be better for everyone. And if you both agree to that, if your ex says, yeah, that's good, and if you say, yeah, that's good, then it would happen. If you guys go in there and you're like, you know what, I got 45% and I'm ready for 50. Let's just go for 50-50, week on, week off, or 2-2-5, which if you don't, I would not recommend that because it creates problems. You want the biggest length of time possible. But there's a high probability with the kids, if the kids are young, that might not be appropriate. And if that's the case, that's fine. So what you do in that situation, or what I'm saying is that, okay, so if you go in and you're like, okay, we both want 50, or I want 50-50, you want 50-50. And if your ex says, no, I don't agree with 50-50, 45 is good enough. We'll stay with 45, right? Then you have, or if she turns around and was to say, no, 45 is not working. You're not, the kids aren't doing their homework and they're really stressed and tired and they're complaining to me all the time about having to spend time with you. Whatever the excuse is, right? If you both don't agree, the mediator is going to go, okay, well, you guys can't, sure you can't mediate? Miss X, Mr. X, you can't agree to anything? Mrs. X, you can't agree to anything? And then they send it back to the court. The only time your time would be reduced would be then if you go through a trial and the judge says, this isn't working. With all the evidence that's been presented, I think it should be, whatever. More than likely, on that, your time's not going to be reduced unless you agree to it. The only other caveat I would say is if there's a move away, right? You say you're in Sacramento. As long as, the gotcha on this could be that, I'm not really familiar with the Sacramento area, but let's say you're on, you guys live on one side of town, the kids go to school on one side of town, and the ex says, well, I have to move to the other side of town, so they're going to move schools and whatever. And then you're not able, neither one of you are able to facilitate them, facilitate doing the 45% or the 50-50. That's where it gets into a problem. The reason I mention that is because that is the game that a lot of people will play. They'll be like, oh, okay, well, I want full custody. I think that if there was a decision to make to where, someone's going to get 80-20, going to get all the time, I'm going to move. I have to move. I have to move over. It's kind of funny I say moving since I might have to move. But what I'm saying is that, if you turn around and you're like, okay, well, we have to move, so the kids are going to go with me, and there's no way to facilitate it. Like, let's say, for instance, since I know a little bit of this area, let's say it's like, okay, we live in Sacramento, but I'm moving to Chico, which would be a bad idea with the fires, but that's beside the point. It's so far that there's no way that you could take the kids to school every day and stuff like that, right? So that would force a move away, which would force a custody change. I mention that because sometimes, in my situation, that's what my ex was doing. She was thinking that she was going to win, and that by moving out of state, the court would say, oh, of course, the primary caregiver is mom, and mom's moving out of state, so of course she gets full custody. And oh, sorry, Dad, you get a couple of weeks during the summer. Make sure you do those Skype calls, that type of thing. The reality of it is that what in my situation is had she done that, it looked very strongly like the recommendation was going to be, hey, okay, cool, have fun, go out of state, do something different, but the kids are going to stay with Dad. And hence what happened on that is she lives a mile from me that way. Anyways, so short version to this is how likely is it that your time is going to be reduced by the mediator or a judge is pretty low. Barring any problems, barring you doing anything, well, let me put it this way, barring you doing anything or your ex doing something, because let's say she does something that's really significant and it's just like the court goes, holy crap, the kids, maybe supervised visitation would be good. The likelihood all that stuff is going to happen is pretty low. The likelihood that your ex is going to try to provoke you to do something or really play the kids to get you to do that is that could be on there. So on that, one thing I really want to hit is the fear on all of this, and I know what you're talking about, Coptic voice, and that is where you really get into this mode where you're like, oh my god, what's going to happen? I mean, should I even go? I got 45. Do I want to risk it? Don't let the fear get to you. The fear will make it to where you can potentially make mistakes. You need to keep yourself as calm, as grounded as possible. Your kids are going to pick up on the fear. Your ex will be able to leverage that fear to try to provoke you to respond in a way that's pretty negative. And don't do it. It's things are in your situation. From what you're saying, they're pretty darn stable. You're moving towards a situation that you're already getting an increase in time. You're actually already winning, to be perfectly honest, because typically what happens is, especially with a really super toxic ex, they're able to establish majority custody right off the bat. Typically, they play the domestic violence type restraining order play to where it just torpedoes the whole thing. It appears that if you were dealing with that, you've been able to mitigate it, and so you're already starting out on a pretty solid footing. I know sometimes it doesn't feel like it, but that's really the case. It's kind of crazy though when you think about it. Being in California, as a fellow Californian, because everyone has the opinion that California is just really bad on these things. Very mom oriented. It's like mom gets everything, dad gets to pay the bills, that type of thing. And it's really not the case. I mean, I'm not sure how it is in all the other states, but California seems to have really changed. It's kind of bizarre. Or maybe it's just now that men are wanting to be more involved. I mean, maybe back in the day, everyone had that mentality that, mom gets the kids and the dad's just like, that's the way it is. And no one really fought it or asked for it. And I don't know. But anyways, I'm glad to see that pivot. I'm glad to see that change. Like I mentioned, Coptic voice, it seems like your situation is, you're in a pretty good spot. So I wouldn't be too worried. If I was you, easy for me to say, coming from on the other side of this camera, but I think you're in a pretty good position, and I wouldn't really worry about your time being reduced. Does that mean it might? I mean, it could happen, but just don't go down that path, right? If everything is going well, you're doing well, your kids, I think you say your kids, everything is going great with the kids. There's no reason for them to do that. Now, if the kids were horrible, or not horrible, but if the kids were doing horribly and they hated being over there with you, and there's some people who are dealing with that, where the kids have completely turned against the other parent, or turned against the dad. I mean, the story I'm thinking about off the top of my head. And then you got a problem, right? I mean, if the kids are basically telling everyone that they would talk to that you're a piece of crap and they don't want to be there, you have problems. Maintaining and, facilitating a really good, stable relationship with your kids is critical on this and makes a huge difference. It sounds like you already have that going on. Barring any problems, you're going to be okay. Now, what I was talking about before, just to kind of dovetail with this, there's probably going to be some manipulation of the kids, and I would expect that when you go into mediation, you are going to hear that the kids don't like this schedule, they don't feel comfortable with it. Keep in mind, if you're dealing with a toxic ex, they're planting that seed of that seed of discontent, so to speak, in your children, and the kids are going to be telling the other parent what they want to hear, right? They know, okay, if I say good stuff about daddy, mommy's going to be upset. So let me make sure I complain about everything I possibly can. Like, daddy doesn't cook as good as you, or I don't like his food, or his house is cold, or whatever the hell it is. As long as the kids are good with you and they're not, they're showing you love and attention, that's the reality of it. Expect that your ex is going to pick apart every little negative thing to try to demonstrate that you're a piece of crap. Again, remember that the family courts understand this. They see this crap all the time, and they don't automatically believe it without other evidence. Now, if your kids are saying that crap to you, and they're saying it to mommy, that's a problem. And I mean, potentially, if she's willing to drag the kids in court to talk to the judge, and the judge says, I don't like daddy or mommy, but realistically, is that really going to happen? They may tell the other parent, the toxic parent, what they want to hear, but are they really going to throw you under the bus if they have a private meeting with the judge? Most of the time, it doesn't happen that way. So, bottom line, I know I've said this already. I think how likely was your time to be reduced? I don't think it's very likely. I think you have a very solid situation. keep doing what you're doing, keep the kids doing great, keep everything as stable as possible. Don't take the bait from your ex, and go into the mediation, ask for what you want, which I'm assuming is 50-50. Hopefully your ex will be reasonable and realize she's going to lose in this situation and just agree to it. More than likely, that probably won't happen because she's got nothing to lose, right? If she either gets you to agree to a lower amount or stay where you're at, and then she has the in her mind the majority of time and is the custodial parent and whatever. Just make sure you get 50-50 joint physical so that you actually have a say in your kids' lives, and she doesn't just get to control everything. So on that, hopefully that was helpful. Thank you very much, Coptic Voice, for your question. I appreciate it. Anybody else who has a question and wants to do it, just put it in a comment on this video. Email it to me. I really appreciate it when you guys do that because it gives me a specific topic to address and to talk about. And I can go into a little bit more deep dive at it than I normally do in the live streams. And yeah, if this channel is helpful to you, please consider hitting the subscribe button, ring the bell notification so that YouTube will tell you what's going on. And if you're looking for other videos, if you're new to this, right down here is the Mindset for Narcissistic Abuse playlist. That's a good primer for this. I need to change the name to something different. And above that is a video that YouTube has thinks is the best match for you that could be based on your search terms. Might be interesting for you, so check that out. And on that, I will talk to you on the next video. Take care. Bye.